Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. Beryl is now a tropical storm as it moves across Texas. What disruptions it's causing and where it's headed next. President Biden tells congressional Democrats that he is firmly committed to staying in the race. What else he says in a letter to Capitol Hill. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin meets with the head of NATO just as the military alliance marks its 75th anniversary. We'll tell you what the two discussed. Aircraft manufacturer Boeing pleaded guilty to a fraud charge last night. They could potentially pay up to $487 million in fines, but that's a fraction of the almost $25 billion that families of crash victims wanted. A historic $16 billion project approved for a new train tunnel between New Jersey and New York City. We'll tell you what this means for commuters and for the economy. And Alec Baldwin arrives at a pre-trial hearing to face an involuntary manslaughter charge. What will happen to the actor if convicted? Beryl has weakened to a tropical storm after making landfall in Texas as a Category 1 hurricane this morning. The storm system caused major disruptions in the Houston metro area and along the Gulf Coast.
Beryl made landfall Monday morning around 85 miles southwest of Houston, with winds up to 80 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center said damaging winds and flash flooding will continue as Beryl keeps pushing inland.
We've seen wind gusts of 70, 80 miles per hour across portions of the Houston metro area, widespread power outages. We still have life-threatening storm surge inundation ongoing. There are flash flood warnings in effect for the entire Houston metro area, as well as a few tornado warnings that are popping up in these outer rain bands a little farther to the east, closer to East Texas, closer to the Louisiana border.
121 Texas counties are under a disaster declaration. 2 people in Harris County were killed after trees fell onto their houses. According to PowerOutage.us, over 2.7 million customers were without power, including most customers in the Houston metro area. The storm system is also disrupting travel. According to the flight tracking website FlightAware, airlines in the U.S. canceled more than 1,300 flights and delayed over 1,000 on Monday. The National Hurricane Center has the following suggestions on staying safe.
You want to use flashlights and not candles to provide lighting if you have a power outage in your home. And please practice generator safety. We lose a lot of people after tropical storms and hurricanes to carbon monoxide poisoning from improper generator use. The generators either being run in the home or not vented properly. So please follow those guidelines and make sure that you keep you and your family safe.
FEMA and the U.S. Coast Guard have pre-positioned staff to assist with search and rescue efforts. The National Weather Service expects Beryl to weaken to a tropical depression Tuesday. It's likely to move over eastern Texas and then through the lower Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley by Wednesday.
One of America's biggest tourist attractions will officially become the hottest place on Earth. The National Weather Service is predicting daytime temperatures in Death Valley National Park to reach nearly 130 degrees in the coming days. Forecasters say daily temperatures could reach or exceed heat records in several states, from Idaho to Washington. About 36 million people, or 10% of the country, are suffering from extreme heat conditions due to a heat dome that's centered over California. One visitor to Death Valley says it's a major accomplishment to be in the hottest place in the world during the hottest time of the year.
You know, how many people in the world can say they've been to the hottest place in the world? It's almost like climbing Mount Everest. How many people can say they actually climb Mount Everest? So it's just being there in the hottest place in the world at this particular day, at this particular time.
But the heat wave could be dangerous. Officials in Portland, Oregon reported 4 suspected heat-related deaths amid the heat wave. Next, in Washington, D.C., President Biden is vowing to stay in the presidential race amid criticisms over his debate performance. He writes a letter to congressional Democrats today as lawmakers return to Capitol Hill. In the letter, Biden wrote, quote, "I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this race to the end." The president also urged unity among Democrats and warned against any weakening of resolve. Earlier this morning, Biden told MSNBC's Morning Joe program, quote, "I am not going anywhere." Biden also expressed frustration with what he called an effort by elites to force him out of the presidential race. Democratic House members are set to hold a caucus meeting with Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tomorrow. A judge in former President Trump's classified documents case has granted a pause on some deadlines. Trump's lawyers asked to argue the merits of the Supreme Court's immunity decision on Friday. Judge Eileen Cannon granted a temporary stay on 3 pending deadlines in the case on Saturday. Judge Cannon is giving Trump's attorneys and special counsel Jack Smith's team more time to file additional briefs. Trump's brief is due on Thursday. Smith's brief is due next Thursday. Trump's legal team has until July 21st to reply to that. Trump has pleaded not guilty. No trial date has been set. And one day before the start of the NATO summit in Washington, D.C., Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg today. During the meeting at the Pentagon, Austin praised Stoltenberg's leadership and guidance.
NATO is celebrating its 75th anniversary. The military alliance is facing a series of challenges, including the ongoing wars in Gaza and Ukraine and the aggression of communist China. Despite those and other issues the group faces, Stoltenberg says NATO must stay the course toward global security, with the entire membership doing their fair share.
We will also make decisions for the future on deterrence and defense, ensuring that we have the forces, the readiness, the capabilities we need to continue to deter any aggressor, and also ensure that allies continue to carry their fair share of the burden.
NATO began with 12 countries at the end of World War II. The alliance now has 32 members. Georgia, Ukraine, and Bosnia and Herzegovina are looking to join. Austin noted that this year's summit will not only tackle the difficult issues that NATO is dealing with, but also strengthen global security.
We've made outstanding progress in strengthening our deterrence and defense. We built on our progress from previous summits, and we've shown the world that NATO is stronger, larger, and more united than ever before.
Political experts say they believe the success of NATO will largely depend on how effective the alliance is in supporting Ukraine. The summit begins Tuesday through the end of this week.
Ukrainian officials say at least 36 civilians are dead after what they call the deadliest Russian airstrike in months. The Kremlin says it didn't target any civilian infrastructure. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the details.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia fired over 40 missiles on Monday. Ukrainian officials are calling it the deadliest airstrike in months. Russia, meanwhile, justified the attacks, pointing to previous missile strikes by Ukraine. Zelensky says the strikes damaged residential and commercial buildings, as well as infrastructure in cities across Ukraine.
We pledge to work on bringing Russia to justice for the terror.
Russia calls the allegations completely untrue, saying it targeted defense industry facilities and aviation bases. The Kremlin adds that the strikes came, quote, in response to attempts by the Kyiv regime to damage Russian energy and economic facilities. This comes as both Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin are meeting foreign leaders on Monday. Zelensky is in Warsaw meeting the Polish Prime Minister. Putin, meanwhile, is hosting India's Prime Minister for a 2-day visit. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
In France, the left-wing coalition won the final round of parliamentary elections yesterday. This came as a surprise in the country, as poll makers predicted the nationalist group would win. Political analysts say a probable scenario would be an ungovernable country in the months to come. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez has the details.
Against all odds, the leftist alliance New Popular Front defied surveys and took the top spot in France's snap legislative elections. Latest figures show the left wing won 182 seats, Macron's party 163 seats, and the right-leaning National Rally 143 seats. One takeaway of this election is that these numbers don't reflect the number of voters. According to official figures, the National Rally had more voters than any other political groups, about 8 million out of 28 million voters. However, the large coalition from right groups to the left and the voting system have greatly disadvantaged the National Rally to the benefit of the left-wing coalition. Left-wing leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon called for Macron to resign in the aftermath of the elections. He also mentioned his party would apply promised measures such as a new taxation on high profits, a blockade on energy price tariffs, and a better welcome for migrants.
First of all, the president must either leave or choose a prime minister from within our ranks. The Constitution gives the president some prerogatives, but it also gives some to the prime minister. So both will have to get along in order to, for instance, recognize as soon as possible the state of Palestine.
The election outcome will have potential impacts on the war in Ukraine, global diplomacy, and Europe's economic stability. But as there is no clear majority in the parliament, analysts highlight a period of uncertainty in the country.
I think what this means is that we're facing a prolonged period of instability, a long period of political uncertainty that could mean policy paralysis in the coming months, perhaps even the next year.
The three main groups of parliament are likely not to work together, which could block any new agenda coming from the next prime minister. Some political experts deem France is now likely to be ungovernable. The poor economic situation of the country also adds more concern to the situation, as France's budget deficit is skyrocketing. It's hard to imagine how the left-wing party will finance new measures. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And Boeing has agreed to plead guilty to fraud charges relating to 2 fatal crashes of its 737 MAX jets. That's according to a court filing by the U.S. government late Sunday. Here's more.
If approved by a federal judge, the plea would brand the plane maker a convicted felon. It will have to pay a fine of over $243 million and invest more in improving safety. The charges flow from the fatal crashes in 2018 and 2019, which killed 346 people. They were later traced to a design flaw in the jets, which has since been fixed. Boeing subsequently struck a deal with the Justice Department deferring any prosecution, in return for compensating victims' families and improving its compliance. However, officials this year concluded that the firm had not complied with all terms of the deal. Boeing's position wasn't helped by the mid-air blowout on another MAX plane earlier this year, which raised new concerns about its quality control. It faces a separate criminal probe over that incident. Now the deal sees the firm admit to making false representations over a software system involved in the fatal crashes. It spares the company a contentious trial, but could result in other big costs. The conviction could bar Boeing from lucrative defense and NASA contracts unless it can agree waivers.
A historic $16 billion investment signed into effect this morning. The agreement secures full funding for the Hudson Tunnel project linking New York and New Jersey. NTD's Fiona G has the details.
So today, I'm proud to say the massive $6.8 billion infusion of federal funds, the light at the end of the Gateway Tunnel is signed, sealed, and delivered.
The Gateway Development Commission has closed on a $16 billion budget. $12 billion comes from federal funding, the most for any rail transportation project in modern history. New York Governor Kathy Hochul emphasized how the new infrastructure will increase visitors to New York City.
$20 billion of economic impact. What does that look like? Oh, our local businesses are so excited about families having more money in their pockets when times are tough.
The construction project is expected to double train capacity, improve the commuter experience, and create 95,000 direct, indirect, and induced jobs. It will also include the renovation of the antiquated existing tunnel under the Hudson River, which was built in 1910, in addition to the construction of a new 2-track Hudson River rail tunnel.
22% of the U.S. total economic output comes from the 450-mile-long corridor this tunnel will connect.
The new tunnel is expected to be in service by 2035, and the existing tunnel will complete renovation by 2038. Fiona G., NTD News.
Panama's government has started installing barbed fence wire in the Darien Gap to stop illegal immigration. Panama's border service says the jungle has become a major route for mostly U.S.-bound migrants. The rainforest border region connects South and Central America. Authorities say more than 195,000 migrants crossed illegally so far this year. Some critics argue the barbed wire worsens dire conditions and could force migrants to take even more dangerous routes. Panama's new president took office last week. He vowed to curb unlawful immigration. His government immediately signed a deal with the U.S. to end passage through the dangerous jungle. When we come back, Alec Baldwin arrives at a pre-trial hearing to face an involuntary manslaughter charge. The actor could spend up to 18 months in prison if convicted in the 2021 shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. And a Kentucky prison warden shares how a garden at his facility is having a big impact on inmates' lives. That and more after this break here on NTD News.
A painting that has true beauty. I imagine it's like a door. The artist holds the key to open the door and bring people to a purer world. A world where people are more compassionate.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Elmo's daddy taught him that when he has a big feeling like being frustrated, humming a song can help you feel better. Love your mind.
Lord Heavenly Father, I pray to you today to guide us tomorrow. Give us strength as we face death. Help us not to be afraid, as we know that we are going to be coming to your kingdom.
Actor Alec Baldwin arrived in court today for a pre-trial hearing related to the 2021 shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. The actor faces an involuntary manslaughter charge and up to 18 months in prison if convicted. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest on the case.
Baldwin took a seat in the courtroom today beside his four-person legal team. Last week, the judge approved firearms experts for the prosecution to testify about Baldwin's handling of the revolver. They'll speak to whether the gun was functioning properly prior to the fatal shooting. The judge ruled that Baldwin's role as co-producer isn't relevant to the trial. Prosecutors had claimed Baldwin's imposing role as a producer likely emboldened him to act recklessly. Set armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was sentenced to 18 months for her role in the shooting. Baldwin has pleaded not guilty and claims the gun fired accidentally. The actor says he was unaware the gun was loaded with a live round. Baldwin said he pulled back the hammer, not the trigger, and then the gun fired. Jury selection begins tomorrow. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
South Korea's Samsung Electronics workers began a 3-day strike today after their union's negotiations with management over wages and benefits stalled. The union and management have held a series of negotiations since earlier this year, but have not been able to narrow their differences over demands for a salary increase and improved benefits. The strike is scheduled to end on July 10th, but the union has threatened to stage another strike starting July 15th if no progress is made during the 3-day strike. Next, Skydance Media and Paramount Global have agreed to a merger. Yesterday's announcement marks the end of an era for the Redstone media empire. The Redstone family launched a chain of movie theaters in 1936. Originally named the Northeast Theater Corporation, it later morphed into National Amusements. It eventually became one of the largest media companies in the United States, with Paramount Pictures, CBS, and Viacom in its portfolio. Paramount and Skydance agreed to a 2-step process. Skydance and its deal partners will acquire National Amusements for $2.4 billion in cash. After the National Amusements acquisition, Skydance will merge with Paramount. The entertainment company is offering shareholders $4.5 billion in cash or stock. The deal also signals rise of a new power player, David Ellison, the founder of Skydance and son of billionaire Larry Ellison, who founded the software company Oracle. One of the biggest retailers in the country has announced it will no longer accept checks from customers. Target says its new policy will go into effect on July 15th. The company says very few customers pay by check these days. Target says it will accept other forms of payment, such as credit and debit cards, digital wallets, and of course, cash. The retailer's decision is not too surprising. The Federal Reserve has noticed a steady decrease in the amount of personal checks written over the past few years. About 12 billion checks were written in 2021. That's down from 20 billion in 2015. At the Hopkins County Jail in Kentucky, inmates are trading in canned food for fresh produce. The jail's garden, started in 2017, is not only transforming diets, but also lives. NTD's Daniel Monahan speaks with jail warden Mike Lewis about the project.
Jailer Mike Lewis says they started the garden back in 2017 with just a small used tractor.
Since then, we've just kept growing and expanding and buying bigger equipment and doing more. At one point, we had almost 3 acres of garden out here on the property around us.
Fresh produce like corn, tomatoes, zucchini, and peppers are plentiful.
Everything that we grow, we bring in, harvest, to give to the kitchen. The kitchen cleans everything up and prepares it so they get fresh vegetables through most of the summer.
For those serving time, the fresh vegetables are a welcome change from the canned foods often on the menu. Many of those incarcerated never had a garden growing up.
It's all a new aspect for them, and seeing that, being a part of that, and helping learning those skills. So it's been pretty eye-opening, seeing adults who don't know anything about it, have never been involved in it, and are learning from the beginning. It's been pretty rewarding to be able to see them learn something, a valuable skill like that now they've never been exposed to before.
Lewis says caring for something greater than themselves can have a transformational effect on inmates.
Anytime you're tasked with the responsibility of taking care of something else and making sure that it continues to flourish, I mean, this isn't just paint a wall and we'll come back in 10 years and paint it. If you don't take care of it, if you don't do what needs to be done today, it might not be here tomorrow. And so it definitely teaches a reliability and an ongoing effort to keep it growing and keep it alive and keep it producing like it should.
Not only are prisoners thriving in the program, but the jail also saved around $11,000 on the food budget last year.
We do the entire garden project at zero cost to the taxpayers, but then it'll save the taxpayers money by not having to buy canned goods during the summertime. So it's been a great economic impact for the county.
Lewis can't be sure any of the inmates will continue gardening once released, but believes they'll definitely be taking a priceless gift home with them.
It's kind of like baseball or football when you're a kid. You may not play it for a living, but you learn a lot of valuable skills about working with other people, working together, caring for something, making sure that it works, and realizing that there's a lot of things bigger than us, and sometimes you got to do that as a team.
From fresh produce to invaluable life skills, the Hopkins County Jail is planting seeds of change. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Volleyball players from around the world played on a floating court in Slovenia on Saturday. For the athletes, the unusual venue was a welcome reprieve from brutal heat waves across the globe. Slovenia hosted the event, named Volleyball on Water. Organizer says the competition was the only one of its kind in the world. The games took place in Slovenia's capital, Ljubljana. With the court partially submerged, players competed a few feet beneath the surface of the city's river, marking a new challenge for the athletes. They mostly came for the fun and the challenge of competing in a different environment. Thank you so much for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. Join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. See you tomorrow.
Did you know indoor air quality can be 5 to even 100 times worse than outdoors? Meet the Air Doctor. It's your answer for clean air and the only hospital-grade air purifier equipped with advanced ultra HEPA filters, proven to improve your indoor air quality and overall health. Air Doctor